Disclaimer. We are interested in everything and experts in nothing. We enjoy learning, but get it wrong sometimes. We mean no disrespect, and if we mess up, kindly correct us. Let's take this ride together, unless your intention is to cause harm or distress, in which case, with utmost haste, fuck right off.
So, what are we doing? What's
This is
week?
my episode,
Mhm.
and this week I'm doing the history of tattoos.
Okay.
Yes. I could not find something like everything on the list. I kept going like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that.
Look,
I don't want to
same.
do that. And I feel like I looked down at my arm and I went, all right, why not?
Where'd these come from?
Why do we do this? So, obviously, I pulled it from how they originated.
Okay.
And then we'll get to a point where we're going to skip by and say what tattoos were like in the 1900s, in the 1910s, 20s.
Okay.
So we're going to start super old and then slowly, progressively get more current.
Okay. I'm ready.
So humans have marked their bodies with tattoos for thousands of years.
Okay.
These permanent designs, sometimes plain, sometimes elaborate, always personal, have served as amulets, status symbols, declarations of love, signs of religious beliefs, adornments, and even forms of punishment.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Most of that made sense. I didn't know punishment.
Yes.
Okay.
So Joanne Fletcher, research fellow in Department of Archaeology at the University of York in Britain, describes the history of tattoos and their cultural significance to the people around the world. From the famous Ötzi Iceman, a 5,200-year-old frozen mummy, to the Maori people of today. I think I said his name right. Ötzi, you know the Iceman?
I do know the
Yeah.
Iceman.
I think it's Ötzi, or it's not Etsy. It's like
No.
Ötzi or something.
I've never heard it pronounced, so I trust you.
I think it was Ötzi, but I could be wrong. Locations where tattooing practices have been recorded on human remains include Alaska, Mongolia, Greenland, Egypt, China, Sudan, Russia, and the Philippines.
So to clarify,
everywhere.
Well, sure, yes. But as in, like, they were tattooed during their lives,
yes.
Or they were tattooed as part of it?
No, they were not tattooed as a funerary rite. These were tattoos on human remains, like, that they found. All of these discoveries link to different periods of time throughout ancient history. Some of these date back to 2100 BC.
Okay.
In terms of tattoos on actual bodies, the earliest known examples for a long time were Egyptian, and they were present on several female mummies dated to 200 BC.
Oh, that's not as old. Okay.
No, but that was the earliest known at the time, and that's when the more recent discovery of the Iceman in the Italian-Austrian border was in 1991. His tattoo patterns, this date of oldest, has been pushed back further thousands of years when he was carbon dated to be around 5,200 years old.
Ooh, okay.
So originally they're like, oh, okay, Egyptian mummies. But then they're like, oh, wait, this dude is like way older than that.
Nice.
I have pictures.
Yes. Oh, show me.
This is a picture of tattoos on an Egyptian mummy. And we will put these tattoos on the website.
Yes.
Obviously, this is on a desiccated corpse because it's a mummy, so it looks a little awful. But we'll just keep going.
Well, the mummy looks a little awful. The tattoo could be worse.
The tattoo could be worse. Yeah, the mummy itself, sorry,
it looks like it's...
you've...
I can see through you.
Yeah, you got holes in places that they shouldn't normally have holes.
Correct.
But anyway,
that's what... eye?
I think it's supposed to be the Eye of Horus.
Interesting.
I think. I don't know.
It kind of looks like... It almost looks like two of them facing each other.
Facing each other, yeah. There's certainly evidence the women had tattoos on their bodies and limbs from figurines 4,000 to 3,500 BC. Occasional figures represented in tomb scenes in 1200 BC and in figurine form in 1300 BC, all with tattoos on their thighs.
Oh, okay.
Also, small bronze implements identified as tattooing tools were discovered in the town site of Ghurab in northern Egypt and dated 1450 BC.
I wonder how they know they're tattooing instruments.
I feel like in Egypt, it's because almost everything was documented. And so there's
that would help.
probably
Yeah, that would help.
papyrus or some kind of glyph depicting the tattoos.
That would help. Agreed.
Because they were very good at recording their history. So, of course, there are mummies with tattoos from the 3 women already mentioned and dated to 2000 BC, to several examples of female mummies with these form of permanent marks around the Greco-Roman burials in Achaemenum.
Achaemenum?
Oh,
sure.
Sure. Now, because these seem to be exclusively female practices in ancient Egypt, mummies with tattoos were usually dismissed by the male excavators, who seemed to assume that these were women of dubious status.
Oh, of course. Well, and that's also projection to their own feelings of tattoos.
Yes. Yeah. They were described in some cases as, quote, dancing girls. The female mummies had nevertheless been buried at Deir al-Bahari, which is opposite the modern Luxor.
Oh, okay.
In the area associated with royal and elite burials.
So they just decided to disregard that?
Completely.
Okay.
And we know of at least one woman described as possibly a royal concubine. They described her as possibly a royal concubine. She was actually a high-status priestess named Amnuet.
Oh, were they religious then? Tattoos?
And they revealed by her funerary inscriptions, she was a high priestess. They have some theories that they were, part of it was religion, another part of it was because some of the mummies had tattoos like near or around their womb area and their lower body. They were thinking that maybe it had something to do with like birth, childbirth,
or fertility,
things of that. But basically, they're saying that this is a royal concubine, and in fact, she's a fucking high priestess. So fuck you, snooty white dudes.
Yeah, very different.
Yes. Most examples on mummies are largely dotted patterns of lines and diamond patterns, while figurines sometimes feature more naturalistic designs. So on the actual body, just more like dots and lines and plain things, and then anything that had a figurine that was carved or painted is a little bit more elaborate.
Okay.
The tattoos occasionally found in tomb scenes and on small female. Wow.
I don't know what that was.
Small female figurines, which form part of cosmetics items, also have small figures of the dwarf god Bes on the thigh area. So a perfume bottle or some kind of cosmetic something is in the figure of a woman and has the dwarf god Bes on the thigh area.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So now we're going to go again and talk about the body. Otzi, the Iceman.
The Iceman.
In total, he had 61 tattoos.
Oh, get it!
Yeah, in various different locations. And the majority of these ink inscriptions were located on his legs.
Well, it's a lot of real estate
It's
on the leg.
it's a real lot of real estate. Close examination of the markings on the mummy indicate that soot or fireplace ash was used to create the tattoo.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, creative.
Mm-hmm. The distribution of the tattoo dots and small crosses on his lower spine and right knee and ankle joints correspond to areas of strain-induced degeneration. Because they put this guy through an MRI machine.
Oh.
Because he was... When they originally discovered him, they thought that it was a hiker or somebody that had become trapped because he was so well preserved.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it wasn't until further examination they realized that it's like, oh no, this dude is not a recent corpse. So because of how well preserved he was, like they put him through an MRI, they've done CAT scans, they've done various other scans. So they could see on the scans, like where he had the majority of his tattoos were places that they could tell had degeneration, just like from like arthritis, things of that nature.
So maybe it was like medicinal or healing.
Yes, and so they have theorized that they may have been placed to alleviate joint pain and kind of like a acupuncture type or like a blessing to protect pain, but basically they were essentially therapeutic.
Nice.
So if he's having extreme discomfort, in certain areas, maybe that was the medicinal cure for it. And this would also explain the somewhat random distribution in the areas of the body that would not have been easily to display, and would not really be applied as a form of a status marker. Because if he's got a bunch of tattoos like on his knee or on his ankle or on his hip, they're not going to really show him off as like, hey, I'm a highborn somebody. Wait,
Right.
let me just pull down my pants and show you my hip so you can see it. And instead, we're more like ancient world Bengay patches.
Okay.
So that's the working theory. Nothing has been proven otherwise. But I mean, if they're going to run an MRI and they see degeneration where these marks are, you almost would think
Yeah.
it's
well,
medicinal.
and acupuncture
Mhm,
has
mhm.
effect. They've got dry needling,
Yep.
which has effect. So, I mean,
Who's to say? I mean, I've got a piercing in my dais to prevent my headache, my
Yeah.
freaking migraines, and it's worked better than anything else I've tried in my life.
yeah.
I mean, it's not perfect by any means, but it's definitely doing something.
Yeah. Interesting.
So then we're going to move away from Otzi.
Oh, okay.
Some centimeters across some cemeteries.
That makes more sense. I'm like,
Yes,
centimeters?
centimeters?
That's so close.
Some
Where are we
cemeteries
going?
across western China in the province of Xinjiang, I'm so sorry for anyone who speaks Chinese, have been revealed a number of mummies with tattoo skin. Some mummies date as far back as 2100 BC, while others are considerably younger, dating around 550 BC.
Well, still pretty old, though.
Still, but a lot younger than 2100 BC.
Well, sure.
Within ancient Chinese practices, though, tattoos were considered to be barbaric and they were highly stigmatized.
Oh.
And ancient Chinese literature refers to folk heroes as bandits. Oh, folk heroes and bandits having tattoos. It's also thought that it had been fairly common for convicted criminals to be branded with a tattoo on their face. And this tattoo was to warn members of society that this person could not be trusted.
Like a scarlet letter.
Yeah,
Okay.
only a more permanent one on your face.
Yeah, that sucks.
Okay, so here we go. I don't speak Russian either. In the Scythian Parzyrek of the Altai mountain region, where another ancient culture employed tattoos. In 1948, a 2,400-year-old body of a Scythian male was discovered preserved in ice in Siberia. His limbs and torso were covered in ornate tattoos of mythical animals.
Okay, so probably not a brand.
Probably not a brand. Probably not medicinal.
Yeah.
Could have been. Don't know. But obviously this was seemed to be more about body decoration. In 1993, a woman with tattoos, again mythical creatures on her shoulders, wrists, and thumb, were of a similar date, and it was found in a tomb of Altai. She's also been called the Siberian Ice Maiden.
Okay, I think I've heard of that.
Yes, as well as the Altai Princess.
Yeah.
And I have pictures of what was in her tomb, what she looked like, and what they did as a composite of what they thought she looked like in life.
Neat.
Mm-hmm. The practice is also confirmed by the Greek writer Herodotus in 450 BC, who stated that amongst the Scythians and the Thracians, tattoos were a mark of nobility, and not to have them was a testimony of low birth.
Oh, wow. We have been all over the gamut.
We have.
Okay.
We've got places in China where only thieves and criminals, anyone that's been convicted, has tattoos.
Yeah.
We've been in places where it's literally just a medicinal remedy for joint pain. And now we're here, only the highborn people. Accounts of the ancient Britons likewise suggest they were tattooed as a mark of high status, with divers shapes of beasts. I think that's supposed to be diverse.
Probably diverse.
Okay.
That makes more sense.
Diverse shapes of beasts tattoos on their bodies. The Roman named one of the northern tribes Picti.
Yes!
The Pict. Literally the painted people.
Yes. We covered that in the Loch Ness episode.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
So now there is some debate whether that was actual tattoos or like
Body paint.
Body paint.
Yeah, I remember.
But still, they named them specifically for being the painted people.
Yep.
And now we're going to talk about ancient Greece and ancient Rome because they weren't above this shit either.
Good.
Written records provide evidence of tattooing from the 5th century BCE in Greece Tattoos during this area in Greece were used mainly on outcasts of society, so here we are again.
Okay.
Criminals, prisoners of war, and slaves would be branded with their status.
Okay.
So that's kind of...
That kind of sucks.
Yeah, it kind of sucks. A famous example of using tattoos by ancient Greece was the Athenians tattooing owls onto the Samians after defeating them. Because, you know, Athena, she's always pictured with an owl of wisdom. So Athens was named in honor of Athena. And so they're like, haha, we beat you. We're going to put our goddess's mark on you. Haha, fuck you. Now you know that you've always been beaten by us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Harsh.
Yeah. Let's see. Evidence shows the use of the verb sitzin, which it means to prick when referring to tattoo in their ancient literature. So they even had a word for it.
Nice.
Throughout ancient Rome, there's also evidence of soldiers as well as arms manufacturers getting tattoos. And this was believed as the practice. It continued right through the 9th century. Slaves were also marked with a tattoo in ancient times to show that they had paid their taxes.
Oh. Wow. Imagine if we went to the accountant every year to pay your taxes
to
and
get
you
like
got
another
a little
notch on your arm or
Right?
wherever to prove that you paid your taxes.
I'm
No,
so
you don't
glad
get
that
a
we don't
refund.
do that anymore.
You don't get a refund, you get a mark.
No, thank you.
I mean, I know a lot of people use their refunds to pay for tattoos, but I don't think that's what they were aiming for.
Yeah.
So now we're going to leave the more ancient world behind and go to Samoa.
Okay.
Tattooing is a form of Samoan culture traditionals for thousands of years. The history of tattooing in Samoa is a great example of how tattoos can form an integral part of social culture. It is even believed that the modern-day English word tattoo may have originated from the Samoan word for tattoo, which is tatau.
Okay.
T-A-T-A-U. I assume it's tatau.
I would buy it.
It could be something else. Following James Cook's British expedition to Tahiti in 1769, the islanders' term tatu-tatau, or tatau, meaning to hit or strike, gave the West, supposedly, it's thought that gave the West the name of the tattoo. The tradition of giving and receiving tattoos by hand in Samoa has been practiced for more than 2,000 years.
Wow.
The techniques and tools used for this traditional practice have hardly changed during this time either.
Wow, very traditional. Okay.
The skill is taught and passed down from father to son. The tool used to give the tattoos is handmade from a turtle shell or boar's teeth.
Okay.
Or, I'm sorry, turtle shell and boar's teeth.
Oh, okay.
And the process of receiving traditional tattoos may take many weeks to complete. Tattooing ceremonies are generally held to mark a younger chief's ascension to leadership in its role within society. The marks then became fashionable among Europeans, particularly so in the case of men such as sailors and coal miners. With both professions carrying such serious risks and presumably explaining the almost amulet-like use of the anchors or the miner's lamp tattoos on men's forearms.
Gotcha.
Kind of like, so here I am. I've got my protection tattoo here.
Whatever.
Yeah. So now here we go on to the history of tattoos in the more Western world. In the 1910s, at the beginning of the 20th century, the majority of tattoos were found on circus performers or sailors.
Yeah. Sailors, that one comes to mind right away, but I don't think I would have thought circus.
Really? Sideshow, the tattooed lady?
Oh, I mean, I never remember the tattooed lady.
Oh, yeah.
I guess
there's
that's a
also
good
the
point,
tattooed
but
man.
no, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Tattoos were used to tell someone's personal story as well as their professions. For example, it was common for a sailor to have an anchor tattoo within the sailing community.
Right, yeah.
Right? Tattoos also became a mark of belonging. Young sailors would be tattooed after joining, almost like an initiation ceremony to welcome them on board.
Yeah.
From there, the traditional art form continued to grow and had somewhat more practical purposes. Many of the tattoos were used for identification purposes if the sailor fell overboard or was drowned.
Yeah.
Sailors would get tattoos from different ports that they sailed to. The tattoos would symbolize different destinations as well as the length of their journey. A turtle tattoo would mean that the sailor had crossed the equator, and the swallow tattoo symbolized a journey of 5,000 miles.
That's cool.
Right, because you see those traditional swallow tattoos all the time.
Yeah, I hope it's not, I don't know, I hope it's not offensive. I don't mean it offensive, but it's like Boy Scout badges.
Right? Yeah.
But tattoos. Like,
Yep,
I
basically-
accomplished this task. I get my badge. But it's a
Basically,
tattoo.
yeah. It's a mark of accomplishment.
Yeah.
Like, you sailed across the equator. Turtle tattoo. That could be something that somebody sees and they're like, oh, hey, you sailed across the equator. That's pretty badass. Without
So did I.
having to get, I sailed across the equator
Yeah.
tattooed on my forehead or wearing a shirt all the time. And obviously, if you see a swallow tattoo or a bunch of swallow tattoos, you know that dude's been fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, this one surprised the fuck out of me.
I'm ready.
I gotta tell you. 1920s.
Mm-hmm.
Through the 1920s, cosmetic tattoos became very popular among women. Many would get popular makeup trends tattooed on their faces, as makeup was too expensive to buy.
Oh.
Now, I know they do this today.
They do,
I know
yeah.
permanent makeup is a thing today. I had no idea it was a thing in 1920.
We've circled back around. It's the
Yes.
20s all over again.
It's the 20s all over again. Common tattoos were eyebrows
Mm-hmm.
and lip liner.
Yep.
Traditionally, design tattoos were still less common throughout society and still not very socially acceptable. It was still mainly these so-called outcasts, like
Yeah.
circus performers, sailors, criminals, and the like who supported tattoos. As tattoos were socially unacceptable, most women would keep their cosmetic tattoos a secret.
Mm.
But, you know, if they were using it because they couldn't afford to regularly purchase makeup, but it looks like they're wearing makeup, I mean, you could just say, oh, no, it's just makeup.
You would think.
It's just makeup.
Yeah.
So now we move on to the 1930s.
Okay.
This one would make my mother hurl.
I'm ready.
Social security numbers appeared in the 1930s, and everyone was told to memorize their personal number. Many resorted to tattooing their social security numbers onto their bodies
Oh,
so they
God.
would always have access to it.
Oh, God, that's a horrible
Now, yes, that is a horrifying idea, and that is just waiting for identity theft.
idea. Yeah.
Back in the 1930s, however, not so much.
I guess. Yeah. Different world. Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, you remember when wallets would come with that insert that you could put your name and your address, and like it was basically supposed to be, if you lose this wallet, return it to this person, which I don't know why they thought people were going to do that.
Right.
But it had a point for your social security number.
Don't do that.
And I was filling it out. My mom like ripped it up into like tiny pieces. Don't ever do that. Blah, 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 blah. And I used to carry my social security card in my wallet all the time because I thought this is just another piece of identification.
Yeah.
And then, of course, mom's like, no, put that someplace safe. Don't ever show that. And then, of course, when I stopped carrying it is when I needed it.
Of course. Yeah.
I'm like, son of a bitch. All right, mom, I'm doing it. What do you want? Those who got social security number tattoos did so more out of necessity rather than desire. Because obviously they couldn't remember the goddamn thing. And
Yeah.
so when it asked for it, it was easier just to look at their arm. So those with social security tattoos were not viewed in the same way as people with more decorative and personal tattoos.
Mm.
Tattoos were still only accepted on performers, sailors, and criminals, not by upstanding members of society. The 1930s saw new theories across society that linked tattoos with repressed sexual desires.
Oh.
Albert Perry released a book arguing that the whole process of getting a tattoo is essentially sexual.
What?
Which I'm like, did he have one? Because Jesus Christ, that hurt.
Not the way I do it.
Yeah, that was every tattoo I have. I've never thought, this is sexual. I've thought, this is torture. Make it stop.
This hurts.
With the literature of the like circulating, it was no surprise that taboo was the word for tattoo
Yeah.
for many decades.
Oh, Lord.
Oh,
He's okay.
I'm like, dude, you don't have one. Because if you had one, you wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
Because good God. I mean, some people like paint. I'm sure there is some people who think it's great. I, on the other hand, hate every minute of it.
Not me.
And yet, at the same time, as soon as he finished the one on my arm, I was like, already planning like 3 more.
I need another.
So, like, my friend was joking that they put like cocaine or something in the ink so that you need more. But yeah, as soon as he finished this, I was like, and I'm going to put dogwood flowers here for my dad, and I'm going to do this. And I'm just like, maybe I should let this heal first.
Yeah. Well, it probably does release feel good, happy endorphins.
I
Those
mean, it
natural
must.
painkillers.
It must,
So...
but they weren't doing it while he was doing it. Because
Oh, no.
my God, Gideon can attest to the look on my face and how often I was twisting my foot and like putting my leg out. Like, oh, I can't move my arm, but I can move this leg.
Yeah, the one on my ribs was. I'm glad it was short, but it was squeeze my hands, wiggle my legs,
Yep.
like hold my breath, focus on just not moving.
I'm like, I want to look because it's cool, but at the same time, I can't because it hurts. And then, okay, this isn't ending. Okay, that's not getting better. And then it was over, and I'm like, I love it so much. Thank you. I'll be back.
Exactly.
So, go figure. Now we're on to the 1940s.
Okay.
And the 1940s saw the birth of the iconic Sailor Jerry style of tattoo.
Okay.
This was created by Norman Keith Collins. He added color to tattoos by creating his own pigments and adding them to his tattoo designs. The classic designs of this decade feature bold motifs and plenty of colors. If you think of the Sailor Jerry tattoos, you think of like the rose on the shoulder that says mom, you know, the pinup girl.
Yeah.
That's what's considered kind of the birth of the modern tattoo, if you will, where you're including color, you're including a stylized picture, and it's not just one thing. There's more depth and shading and color to it. There was also an increase in patriotic tattoos due to World War II.
Oh, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thematically, tattoos in the 40s were mostly centered around nautical or military motifs. The war saw an increase in women to the workplace, as well as the increase in women getting tattoos.
Really?
This fundamental shift in tattoo design saw tattoo acceptance rise. Increased popularity meant that decorative ink came out of the shadows and was sported far more than in previous decades. Many of the Sailor Jerry style tattoos are classic and timeless, and people are still choosing similar designs present to this day. My tattoo is reminiscent of that traditional style.
Reminiscent, yeah.
It's not exact on, but the roses are reminiscent of that style, because that's the kind of stuff that he usually does.
Yeah.
1950s. Throughout the 1950s, tattoos became a reflection of masculinity. While it became trendy, especially among bad boys, to have tattoos, there was still a negative social stigma around them. Those tattoos were more likely to be labeled as criminals or thugs. Society had shifted backwards slightly from the 40s, and tattoos were once again seen as the mark of the outcast. For those who continued to get ink, the trend of nautical tattoos continued throughout the 50s. This decade also saw an increased popularity of the chest tattoos.
Okay.
In 1960s, tattoo parlors in New York were blamed for an increase of hepatitis throughout the 1960s. While this may or may not have been true.
Yeah, I was thinking
probably
maybe
not.
Could have been, but okay.
It could have been, but who knows what else was going on with needles.
Well, there's that. Yeah. And also some forms of hepatitis are sexually transmitted, and that was the free love movement.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yep.
It certainly created a negative stigma around the tattoo industry. This meant a lot of people steered clear of getting tattooed throughout this decade. However, the 60s saw an increase of tattoos idols in the media, with famous musicians like Janis Joplin going under the needle. Celebrities flocked to Lyle Tuttle. He was one of the best and most reputable artists at that time. Patriotic tattoos dropped in popularity, especially thanks to the Vietnam War.
Also makes sense.
The classic skull and bones design became particularly popular, especially among bikers.
Okay, I can see that too.
1970s, they saw the tattoos really becoming more mainstream and popular. No longer were they reserved for the outcasts of society. Now regular people wanted to get them too, so back to the 40s. Peace symbols and messages of peace were particularly popular in this decade. The 70s also saw a new style with detailed and intricate designs gaining popularity. Full sleeve tattoos and bodysuits began emerging on young people in the counterculture.
Oh, so sleeves started in the 70s.
Mm-hmm. Full sleeves.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. In 1980s, The decade of rebellion that was the 1980s saw tattoos get bigger and brighter still.
Makes sense.
Bold black outlines, Celtic knots, and colorful motif design rose in its prominence.
Okay.
The music scene also impacted the flourishing tattoo industry, particularly rock and roll.
Yeah.
Many people would get inked after being inspired by their favorite rock star tattoos. By the 80s, society was finally on board, and tattoos were at last socially acceptable for most people. Anyways, because the stigmas dropped away, more and more regular people got tattoos.
But still can't let people see them in the workplace.
Nope.
Unprofessional.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Now we're going to the 1990s.
Okay.
Just like the 1980s, celebrities played a big part of the main tattoo trends in the 90s. One of the most iconic and popular designs of the 90s was the Pamela Anderson barbed wire armband.
Oh, I didn't realize that was a Pam Anderson thing.
She was in a movie called Barbed Wire. I never saw it. I heard it wasn't that great, not because of her, but because it was coming out at the same time that, unfortunately, someone stole their sex tape and had...
Oh.
So her label kind of like abandoned her.
Yeah.
And so the movie didn't get the attention it deserved. I've heard, there's actually I think there's going to be a documentary where Pamela Anderson is finally like telling her side of the story and like kind of taking back
That could be
what happened to her, which I was like, hey, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the barbed wire armband was because of Pamela Anderson. Other popular designs from this decade include tribal designs.
Yep.
Chinese letters,
Mm-hmm.
as well as tattoos of the sun.
Okay.
Questions about the West's use of tribal and traditional tattoo design started being asked across the world as the rise of digital communication enabled global debates about ethics and appropriation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get it. You should not get a traditional Maori tattoo if you are not of Maori descent. Don't do that. It's not like you're writing, I love Snoopy. That's not going to offend anybody.
Yeah.
Well, it might. I don't know. Some people might hate Snoopy. They're weird. But the 2000s, the beginning of the 21st century, saw lower back tattoos increase in popularity. The so-called tramp stamp.
I say with pride because I have one and I love it.
It became one of the most fashionable places for women to get tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
Butterfly and yin-yang symbols also gained traction. I know so many people with both of those tattoos that got them in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Celebrities continued to steer tattoo trends of tattoos throughout the noughties, so the aughts.
Yeah, okay.
Star tattoos rose in popularity, largely thanks to the singer Rihanna.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Well, that's not why I got my stars.
Well, I have my stars too, and that was not because of Rihanna.
Yeah.
So now we're at the 2010s to now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So far, the 2010s have seen trends related to both design and placement of tattoos. Small tattoos in unusual places, like the fingers or behind the ears, are now very popular. Many people are opting for quirky and creative designs. One of the most popular designs for a small finger tattoo at the moment is the novelty mustache.
I don't get that.
I know. It's starting to fade now, but I remember when so many people were getting that.
Yes, sir.
It was
there.
Yes,
yeah.
And they had like temporary finger mustache tattoos that I got for the kids because they just thought it was hilarious, and they were like Muppet tattoos, like big bushy blue and orange, but they were temporary, so it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Other popular trends include the infinity symbol, feathers, and the ever popular tribal tattoos.
Yeah.
So there was a snippet on Facebook, and I can't even remember how it showed up on my timeline, but it was someone asking tattoo artists in this one shop, what are you so sick of tattooing?
Yeah.
Like, please God, not another one. Feathers were huge.
Yeah.
Like just like small birds, like flocks of birds.
Yeah.
So tired of that. Obviously tribal tattoos. They were so tired of the infinity symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were talking about how they hate when someone wants a bouquet of flowers that is their family's birth flowers because they're such a pain and they don't look good together. And I immediately went, oh, that's my dream tattoo.
I know. You said it and I went, oh.
So I was like, all right, maybe I'll rethink that and just do individual flowers and leave it at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this woman was going off. She's like, they don't look good together. It never looks good. I don't know why you think this would be a good idea. And I'm like, I thought I was being creative. Instead of getting their names or whatever, I would get my kids' birth flowers, but apparently not.
Apparently lots
So
of people had that
I need to rethink
idea.
that bullshit, and it's not going to be in bouquet form.
Yeah.
Yeah, they mentioned the stupid fucking mustaches, and yeah, I just was like, okay.
Heck.
I mean, I get that you're doing this literally all day, every day.
Yeah.
So if you came in and somebody else was like, another flock of birds tattoo on my wrist, I will vomit.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. But that is what I have for the history of tattoos.
Yeah. Now it's so mainstream. We have Ink Master.
I know, we have Ink Master, and then there was a show on Netflix that was, shit, what did they call it? Tattoo Redo? Is that it?
I don't know, maybe.
I don't know, but basically somebody comes in with a really embarrassing tattoo, and then they're like, yeah, I want to get this covered up. And then the twist is whoever brought them gets to pick it, and the person getting the tattoo doesn't get to see it till the end.
Oh, no.
I know. And I am sure there are outtakes where people are like, fix this now.
Yeah.
But
Ink Master is so addictive, and
Right.
it's crazy because most of the time, because what do I know? I'm an untrained eye.
Mhm.
Most of the time, I'm like, oh, that looks fine. And they're like, this tattoo is shit.
Right?
And I'm like,
right? You're like,
I mean, I wouldn't be mad, but okay.
okay, I clearly am not a professional. I'm so sorry. I am walking away.
Yeah. But every now and then, it's like, oh, God, that's horrible.
Yeah, that's was like, oh God, did you lose a bet?
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that was fun.
Yay!
So if you enjoyed the podcast, give us a like, share, subscribe on any platform. You can find us on social media at Our Trivial Obsessions.
We're so tired of doing this.
I really am. I should just clip it and just drop it in. Anyway, so we're at Our Trivial Obsessions on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You can find us on Twitter at Our Trivial Pod. We have a website, www.ourtrivialobsessions.com. That's where you're going to find our episode references and bonus materials. And you can email us at randomqueensobsess@gmail.com. Random
Because we are.
queens
Because we are.
obsess.
Because we do.
So you can email us there with any topic requests you have for a future episode. And with that, we will see you next week.
Bye!
Bye!